Tommy is without a doubt one of, if not the greatest Power Ranger of all time. After his time as the Green Ranger, he was given the new, powerful White Ranger power. When the Zeo crystals were discovered, he was trusted to be the Zeo Red Ranger. Then, he ended his first tenure as a Ranger with the Red Turbo powers. After a few years off, apparently getting his doctorate, he formed and joined the Dino Thunder Rangers as their Black Ranger. But what happened to him after this? We know that he made the odd appearance since, including using his Master Morpher to become all of the previous Rangers. But what eventually became of him? Well, thanks to Boom Studios, we actually have a full canon answer, so let's get into it. Before we start, guys, I would quickly like to point out this statistic that I sadly discovered. Over 90% of my audience haven't subscribed to the channel. If you're a Power Rangers fan and you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out and allows me to keep making these videos. Okay, so Boom Studios actually teamed up with Jason David Frank as a special consultant to write a final story for Tommy Oliver, titled Soul of the Dragon. If you haven't checked this out, it's an absolute must for a Power Rangers fan. So before we get into the details, where does this story actually take place? While it is not actually stated within the story, we can use certain pieces of information to work it out for ourselves. It's mentioned in the story that Tommy last morphed 8 years ago. Assuming he is referring to Dimensions in Danger, which is the last time we know that Tommy canonically morphed, the absolute earliest this story could be taking place is 2027, which is 2 years after the events of Power Rangers SPD. So the story begins with Tommy basically being made to leave his teaching job due to his school closing his department. We also see that Tommy did eventually marry Kat, which, although I would have liked to have seen him end up with Kimberly, is a nice touch. The next day, Kat and Tommy are in the car together and Tommy expresses how he is disappointed that despite all the power they once had, they didn't really change the world, and SPD officers are still required at checkpoints. Kat assures Tommy that they saved the planet hundreds of times, and Tommy responds by saying the world still doesn't feel safe. Kat says that he needs to recognize the impact he's had on the world, otherwise he will drive them both crazy. She is currently on her way to Triforia, but says that they will figure it out when she gets back. As she leaves, she tells him that he better go and see a doctor about his back pains. Tommy then visits the doctor to get his back checked, and we find out that he has had a cybernetic implant put into his spine, telling the doctor that he hasn't had them checked since the car accident. But then the next page shows us that of course it was injured during a fight as the Green Ranger. Then as Tommy is sat alone in his house looking at an old photo of the original Mighty Morphin team, he heads to his safe and pulls out his Master Morpher, which we can see has clearly been badly damaged. We then get a flashback showing how it was damaged. Then he makes a phone call to his son, who makes fun of his dad for being old and thinking that 10 o'clock is too late to be going out. We find out that his son is an SPD officer, and when Tommy asks if he has any interesting cases going on, he is told that they aren't allowed to tell anyone, to which Tommy responds by saying, "Not even me? How times have changed." Tommy's son is then headed to see a band when he is mugged by a group of thugs. We don't see how this confrontation ends, but the look in his eyes spells trouble. Then a few days later when Tommy is out shopping, an SPD cadet named Inara, that is friends with JJ, Tommy's son, gets in his car and informs him that JJ is missing. She also tells Tommy that JJ had actually quit SPD a few weeks ago, and that she suspects SPD may even have something to do with it. After informing Kat on Triforia of the situation, Tommy heads to the SPD headquarters to speak with Sky Tate. The two talk about how there is nothing quite like being a Ranger, and that Tommy must miss it. When he asks about JJ quitting and being missing, Tate admits that he had known since yesterday and that SPD are on it and that Tommy must leave it to them. After another phone conversation with Kat, Tommy decides to handle this himself. Kat warns him to be extra careful with the Master Morpher, as it hasn't been used in a long time, and the last time it did get used, it did not go well, presumably referring to the incident with his back. Tommy insists he's packing the Morpher for emergencies only. He then travels with Inara to chase up a lead. It takes them to an alien bar where humans are apparently not really welcome. After a little misunderstanding with a group in there, they attack him when he asks about someone JJ was hanging out with named Maurice. In order to handle the attack, Tommy is forced to morph. He calls out Dino Thunder and morphs into the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. He easily takes out the gang and gets the information he wanted from them, the location of Maurice. When speaking with Inara, Tommy powers down without meaning to. Inara inspects the morpher and points out that its gear, which changes it from one power coin to another, is busted, meaning Tommy can only morph in a specific order. But that is not the worst news. The damage from the morpher is actually destroying the power coins that are being used, meaning Tommy can only use them once and only for a limited time. After telling Tommy that using this damaged morpher could end his life, he tells her that it would be worth it to save his son. Now, if any of you would be interested in seeing a separate video all about the Master Morpher and how it works, how it was created, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Moving on, the pair head to some kind of gang meeting where they seem to be selling different crystals that I guess give you ranger powers. There's a cool little description here telling us that different colours actually give you different powers. Black will make you stronger, yellow faster, and pink is great all round. The purchasing gang ask for a demonstration, and then JJ steps out, saying something about his favourite colour before crushing the green crystal in his hand, turning into a new Green Ranger. Shocked, Tommy tells Inara that he must be being controlled. They are spotted and Tommy is forced to morph once again. He shouts, "Shift to the turbo!" and morphs into the Red Turbo Ranger. He takes out a bunch of gang members before being attacked by JJ, who stated that he has been held back for years. Tommy pleads with him to remember who he is, to which JJ responds that he does remember and attacks Tommy once more before the building starts to collapse. JJ and the gang escape and Tommy is left in the building as it collapses. After getting out of the rubble, Tommy's back causes him great pain, so Inara takes a look and fixes it. Tommy says that JJ definitely recognized him and hesitated. The problem with that being that when Tommy was once brainwashed as the evil Green Ranger, he could see everything that he was doing, but he had no choice in it. However, he never once hesitated, leaving Tommy to fear that his son is doing all of this by choice. Inara tells him that pressure and expectations from parents have a big effect on us, and that trying to live up to a father that is the most legendary Power Ranger ever is not easy. She also reveals that she has the remnants of the green crystal that JJ had just used. The pair then take the crystal and with it visit an old friend. Sort of. They check in with Finster, who had since been purified by Zordon's energy wave. He and Tommy are now friends with a mutual respect for one another. Tommy asks him to use the energy from the crystal to track the same energy being given off by JJ. He does so and finds a location. But then the two come to the conclusion that it's very likely that the person behind all of this, the person going by the name The Witch, is very likely to be Rita Repulsa. And despite her soul also being purified from the Zordon energy wave, she could have easily made the same mistakes and turned to evil once more. Finster then gives Tommy something that should stop her from casting spells, but says it will only work once. With that, they leave. When they arrive at the location where JJ is supposed to be, they realise that it's a very heavily guarded area. Tommy checks the Master Morpher. The next morph is Zeo. He states that Zordon once told the Zeo Rangers that their powers would grow stronger over time, and he's had it over 20 years at this point, so it should be enough to get them through. With that, he morphs Zeo Ranger 5 Red and takes out a load of guards single-handed. Inara sneaks in through the back entrance and finds JJ. He gets extremely angry at her, explaining that he has been undercover the entire time. So deep undercover that even SPD think he actually quit. And they have ruined the operation just as the witch was about to make her move. Tommy finally arrives and the situation is explained to him. Then, a Rita shape appears from the shadows. Tommy warns her off, but JJ tells his father that the witch is not Rita. It's Scorpina. They attempt to use Finster's device on her, and she says it may have worked on someone as weak as Rita, but would not work on someone as strong as her. She then blasts Tommy and Inara through a window and takes JJ. Tommy uses the Zeo powers to break the fall, and when he eventually wakes up Inara, the two head back to see Finster and try and find out if he can help them further. But when they arrive, they find Finster dead. Murdered. However, it turns out that Finster had made a clay version of himself to pass on a final message to Tommy. The dark crystals that they have come across could only have been created by one person, a demon lord named Lokar. Finster had discovered that Scorpina was going to use JJ as a tribute to Lokar in return for vast power. Finster gives a heartfelt apology to Tommy before he disintegrates and dies forever. Tommy takes a second to grieve before he starts blaming himself for everything that has happened to JJ, a characteristic that Tommy has certainly always had. Before the conversation can continue, Tommy's phone rings, but before we find out who is on the other end, we are taken to the sacrifice of JJ. He asks Scorpina to explain to him what happened to her for all these years. She gives him the backstory, explaining that she once attempted to steal one of Rita's spellbooks to try and gain more power, but she had been set up and Rita banished her to the realm of the Talons, ruled by Lokar. While trying to gain his favour, she had nothing to offer him. That is until the Z-Wave wiped out all of his allies on Earth. With her unaffected in a different dimension, she could now help him. So he returned her to Earth. But time travel is complicated and she actually landed 10 years into the future, where she used the dark crystals to create twisted versions of the Power Rangers. Lokar was pleased with what she had done, and this final tribute to him was enough for him to grant Scorpina more power than Rita ever had. A voice is then heard from behind. Is that all this is? It's Tommy as the White Ranger. Scorpina asks if he really thinks he can just ride in alone as a White Knight and save the day. Tommy tells her that he is not alone. We see that Tommy has brought with him a bunch of allies, I would assume with the help of SPD. Tommy and Scorpina fight. Kat has also returned to help in the fight and she frees JJ. As Scorpina is beginning to get overpowered, she pulls out a handful of the crystals and breaks them all, turning herself into a massive, monstrous version of herself. She picks up JJ. Tommy's White Ranger powers fail. Only one coin left in the morpher, the Dragon Power coin. Anara urges him to use it. He then calls JJ and throws the morpher to him. He catches it and yells, "Dragon Zord, Green Ranger power." He morphs into the Green Ranger, stating that Retro never looked so good. Lokar appears, demanding his tribute from Scorpina. When she asks for a moment to prepare it, he grows angry and just takes her instead, saying that next time he comes to this world, he will end it. The battle is over. Anara tells JJ that he was a natural, to which he replies that he had a good role model. The four of them, Tommy, Kat, JJ and Anara, embrace. Then, a few weeks later, JJ and Anara, who are back in SPD uniform, try to get Tommy to work there, perhaps as an advisor or a consultant. He chooses he's going to take the time off and let life come to him, expressing that he is finally done with being a ranger. Anara tells Tommy that it was an honour getting to know such a legend, and he states that he only ever accomplished what he did because of his amazing partners, and that she was no exception. With that, Tommy and Kat leave, and JJ and Anara are called into action. He morphs, revealing himself as the SPD Ranger, but this time with the Dragon Shield. Awesome. So there we have it guys, the final fate of the legendary Tommy Oliver. Truly one of the most legendary Rangers of all time. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was an absolute blast to make and I really enjoyed rereading Soul of the Dragon again. It's a fantastic book that if you haven't read already, you should definitely pick up and give it a read. Thank you all so much for watching, may the power protect you, and I will see you next time on the 6th Ranger.